entrepreneurship at times can be lonely, right? When you go out it on your own, and I think you probably reinvent the wheel a lot of times as a small business owner. And I've really been, the more I learn about franchising, I've really been impressed with the the support and the kind of camaraderie that the franchise, both corporate offers as well as the network of other franchisees.
Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a guest on. Now, it's always special when I can have some of my fellow alum on. So I have an alum from Notre Dame. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Terrell. How are you?
I am awesome. I am awesome. So, Greg, everyone already knows that you are a Notre Dame alum. Tell us a little bit more about your background.
Sure. So, yeah, after Notre Dame, I decided to get my MBA. I went to the University of Colorado and got an MBA in entrepreneurship. Um, After that, I worked in technology and business development sales, mostly in the software space, and did that for a few years. Was traveling a lot with that job. And as you know, kind of in a sales role, you're only as good as your last quarter, right? Um, so the company I was working for got acquired. I got laid off, and it was kind of a chance to rethink things. I knew I didn't want to get back on that hamster wheel of that corporate cycle. So at that point, I decided to start my own business, and that was 13 years ago.
Wow, wow. So what was it? I guess, was it a big jump for you? I mean, going from sales into starting your own business, or did it kind of feel natural?
It's certainly a leap of faith, right? You go from having a regular paycheck to not having one for a while. I mean, I was fortunate that my wife was had a good job and could kind of support us for a while, so that was really helpful.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. Now, what business did you go when you went from sales into starting your own business? What business was that?
Yeah, so 13 years ago, I started a company here in Boulder, Colorado called Clean Conscience. And
Okay.
what we do is we're an environmentally friendly house cleaning service. So we use, products and practices that are safe for the environment and safe for people. And it's grown to two locations. So I have one in Boulder and one in Denver and about 40 employees. And I looked at initially, I always thought maybe I'd like to franchise that business. And through exploring franchising with that business, I got introduced to franchise consulting, which is what I'm doing now, in addition to owning the cleaning company.
So tell us a little bit about that franchise consulting. Like, what role would you play in the franchising process?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of people don't know this type of role exists, but basically, I'm a matchmaker for people interested in exploring owning a franchise, and we look at different things, and I try and help folks find the best fit based on investment level, skill set, um, uh, what their personal interests are, lifestyle, desired, things like that. My service is free to my clients as I'm compensated by the brands if and when someone moves forward and purchases a franchise. It's a pretty similar relationship to working with a realtor when purchasing a house.
Hmm. And that sounds like a I guess, a good position that you're in, considering that, like, you have the experience of working in sales for someone else's company, you have the experience of starting your own company, now the phenomenal exposure to a franchise. I mean, you probably have a ton of perspective that you can provide someone who's considering a franchise.
Yeah, I think so. I represent about 600 different franchise brands, and a large part of my role is getting to to know and understand what makes these brands click and what makes them successful. So that's as someone who loves business and small business, that's really fascinating for me. I love learning about these brands and meeting the founders of these brands and things like that. But as you can imagine, it would be a pretty overwhelming process to be looking for a franchise and not really knowing where to start. Or I think there's 4,000 franchise brands in the U.S. So
Wow.
yeah, it could be pretty overwhelming to kind of go about it on your own.
Mhm. So what are some of the things that, like, when you're working with someone and they're like, "Hey, I want to start a franchise," or "Hey, I think I want to get into a franchise." Like, what are some of the questions you ask them to kind of help them start that journey or think through that process?
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of times, initial conversations, a candidate or a client, they'll have a franchise in mind, something they're familiar with in their town or a place they tried. Um, and more often than not, through this discovery process and speaking with them about things like, you know, their skill set, the lifestyle desired, and their investment level. The two of us might come to the conclusion that what they thought they were interested in, might not be the best fit, and something else might be a better fit. But really, um, the biggest thing, one, is probably, is it something they can afford, right? And I also I work with candidates. We have partners that, similar to mortgage, a mortgage banker, we call them funding partners, and we put them in touch with a funding partner, and they work with them to figure out how much they can afford. And there's a lot of kind of unique and creative ways to finance franchises that folks aren't aware of. So it's helpful for them to go through that process and at least figure out, what aisle we should be shopping down.
Mhm.
Obviously, something like a restaurant that requires a build out is going to be more expensive than, a home based service business or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then we look at things like, do they want to work nights and weekends? Just kind of from a lifestyle standpoint, what's important to them. And we just kind of go through a process and narrow things down.
Okay. So was there anything that, I mean, that you found surprising? I mean, going from, like I said, having your own cleaning business and then expanding it to multiple locations, and then, coming into this world where you had to learn, wrap your mind around like over 4,000 franchise brands. Were there anything surprising that you learned, or you're like, man, wow, that was pretty cool. I didn't know that about franchises.
Yeah, I mean, 13 years ago, I wish I had looked closer at franchising. At that time, there wasn't a residential cleaning service that was doing environmentally, safe and friendly, using products and practices like that. So, um, but entrepreneurship at times can be lonely, right? When you go out it on your own, and I think you probably reinvent the wheel a lot of times as a small business owner. And I've really been, the more I learn about franchising, I've really been impressed with the the support and the kind of camaraderie that the franchise, both corporate, offers, as well as the network of other franchisees, in the system, that how the owners support each other.
Through doing some of these interviews, that's one of the things that I've noticed. A lot of them, a lot of business owners have said, as I'm talking like maybe 10 business owners every week, they talk about, when they started their business, great, they were excited about the idea, but finding people that they could work with, or finding people that could help them learn the processes and some of those background ins and outs that you don't really get in business for, but you need to do it to have a healthy business. Like, learning that or finding someone to help them with that was always a struggle. So that's definitely something that sounds like a franchise really helps close that gap for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree. I think if you have a sounding board or a group of people who've gone through something similar, or living it on a day to day, they certainly close that gap, as you said, or could speed up the process. I know my business would have grown a lot faster if I was part of a franchise system. One, both because of the support, as well as I think the competitiveness of just being in a system and comparing yourself to other locations around the country. I think that would help as well.
Awesome. So, how can people get in touch with you if they're curious about looking at franchises, or hey, they want to consult with you or want to get your help to look at some franchises? How can they get in touch with you?
Sure. Well, my brand is called Franchising First, and we have a website, franchisingfirst.com, or you could also contact me through LinkedIn.
Awesome, awesome. So now, one before we wrap things up, one question that I like to ask every business owner is, since you've been in business between running your cleaning business and now the franchise business, what has been something that or some things that you've learned that you're like, man, I wish I knew this when I started?
Yeah, I would say, you know, just keep moving forward, right? Whether you're thinking about starting a business, that's a scary step, right? And it's natural to be scared, and maybe a lot of times those around you might not be supportive of taking that step, or leaving a job or things like that. But I would say just keep moving forward, keep making progress. In your journey to explore franchise ownership, and kind of follow your dream if that's it. It's easy to say I'm busy now, or I'm busy with the kids now, or this is a bad week at work. It's really easy to put it off, and I get that, but there's really never going to be a right time. You just need to move forward. And same thing when you're in business. There's going to be bad days, and there's going to be days you probably think you made the wrong decision, or you want to quit. And, you just gotta, wake up tomorrow and keep moving forward, and keep grinding.
Mhm. And I think that that is definitely some very consistent advice I've heard from a lot of business owners. So definitely thank you for that. Now, I guess anything that you would say if someone said, hey, I am interested in becoming a franchise consultant, if that was something that they were interested in or think they might be interested in, what kind of advice or wisdom would you share with them before making that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy to speak to them. I think ultimately you've got to want to, help people. That's kind of what I feel like I do. I coach people through the process. I help them. I hold their hand through the process, because there's going to be days that they think about, maybe this isn't the right thing. But there's a handful of organizations. I roll up to a parent company called FranServe. I've been really really happy with the management team there, and also really impressed with the brands we represent. I think that's important. Um, the my parent company does a really good job of having strong brands in our portfolio. Um, and it takes a lot of conversations and a lot of phone calls, in order to find people to work with. So you have to be persistent, and you have to love business.
Mhm. Well, awesome. Well, definitely thank you for coming on the show to talk about your background, your businesses, as well as sharing wisdom. And we'll definitely share the link so people can reach out to you. They can connect with you if they're looking for getting to franchise.